So I had a very small window where I was not in the middle of a flare-up this year, and that happened to occur right on my birthday, so happy birthday to me from my body, thank you. But now that I'm back in a flare-up again, I am going to ease us all into another compilation. This compilation, I've been planning this, this compilation is going to be the book club picks that might have been. I subscribe to r/fantasy, and they have several book clubs, and their main book club had a theme for February of fantasy romance. I'm super excited about this, and there were 5 different books that were on this voter list, and they all sounded fantastic. But of course, the one that actually got chosen for the book club pick for February happens to be the only one that is not available in audio. I have to read an audio right now, so it's the one that I'm not going to read. The other 4 I'm going to read in this compilation video. I'm so excited. So the books that I will be reading are as follows. The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo, In the Vanisher's Palace by Aliette de Bodard, Snowspelled by Stephanie Burgis, and The Magpie Lord by K.J. Charles. I have read only one of these authors before, that's Aliette de Bodard, and I like her. This is her fantasy stuff, not her science fiction stuff, which is what I have read. So we will see how much I like this book. I am very optimistic. I'm actually going to start with it. So I am very excited to lose myself in a bunch of really good books. It's gonna happen. Let's do this. So here we are, almost at the end of my flare-up, almost at the end of my book reading list. And let me tell you what I thought. So In the Vanisher's Palace by Aliette de Bodard is the book that I started with. And actually I find that this is a great counterpoint to The Ghost Bride. So I'm going to talk about this first and then move back to The Ghost Bride. In the Vanisher's Palace is a novella that is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast set in a Vietnamese setting, with the Beast being portrayed as a female dragon, a Chinese-type dragon, not a European-type dragon. And what I loved about this book is how unapologetic it is about the setting. It doesn't try to talk down to the reader, to explain customs and so on to a Western gaze. It provides as much context as I needed to understand it, and at the same time celebrates the Vietnamese aspect of it. The other thing about In the Vanisher's Palace that is absolutely exquisite is the world building. It takes place in this post-apocalyptic world, and I was just fascinated from start to finish. I really loved the characters. I really loved the history that this book has with this world. And it all resolved really well, and I enjoyed it so much. I ended up reading it really quickly. Now, in contrast, let's talk about The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo. The first thing that I'm thinking when I pick up The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo is, one, it has a lot of introspection and info dumping at the beginning. Okay, I will breathe in, breathe out, move on. Two, it is catered to a Western gaze, and I hate that. I hate every time the author, especially in the beginning, I'm 2 hours in of 12 hours, and I'm kind of gotten over that hump a little bit, where the author has stopped explaining what the modes of dress are and explaining what the pastries are and other types of food. Like, it takes me out of the story and it takes me out of the character's mindset, especially when this is in first person. So that's not a point in its favor. And the other point not in its favor, to me at least, when I'm picking up an Asian-inspired story that draws on Chinese culture, is the fact that at the very beginning, the main character, Lilan, talks about how she would like to be Christian. Which was like, so we're catering again to a Western audience. And then the main hero, who I think is the main hero at this point, happens to be converted to Catholicism. So I just feel like it's entirely made for a Western audience and not celebrating the Chinese culture that I really want whenever I pick up an Own Voices book about Chinese culture. I'm a little bit on edge as to whether or not I'm going to be continuing. Maybe not. Maybe I'll watch the TV show, and then if that ends well, I'll finish reading the book, or maybe I'll continue until such a time as I get frustrated by the book, as some of the reviews indicate that I might, and then put it down. But let's move on. The other two books that I read, let's see. I did read The Magpie Lord by K.J. Charles, and I have to separate the different aspects of this book in order to talk about them, because they are so wildly different in my opinion of them that I don't want to consider them in the same book. First, I will talk about the mystery and the world building, because that was absolutely incredible. It's set in Victorian England and with magic, and there was a lot of really interesting world building. We're wondering who is trying to kill Lord Crane with magic and investigating, and every time we were on the sort of mystery aspect of it, I continued reading. I couldn't stop. I really, really, really wanted to know what happened, which is how I got to the end of the book, because the romance aspect of it, no thanks. I read romance because the main characters are usually portrayed in positions of equality. They're both men. Even like in this time period, they are both equals in theory. In this story, they're not. I found that from the very beginning in a way that really sickened me. Stephen was kind of thrust into that feminine role. There was an emphasis made on his small stature and on his class, because he's of a lower class than Lord Crane. And Lord Crane was always the aggressor, with an emphasis on aggression whenever they were in any position to be romantic. And then we got to the consent part. And I really feel like any possible consent in this situation is coerced at best. And by the end, it seemed utterly ignored. Stephen did get a little bit of more power as you got along, maybe. And I can see how the author was trying to like backtrack and add some consent, being like, you could stop this if you wanted to. But just because he's physically or magically able to stop it doesn't mean that he's in an emotional position to stop it. And it really felt at the end like it was coerced, because at one point, Stephen flat out says to Crane that he does not want to get physically intimate in Lord Crane's ancestral home. And at the very end, Lord Crane says, I know you said no, but I want it, so we're doing it. And they did. And I just had to skip right over that because it was just so gross. I skimmed to the end to make sure that all of the magic stuff was wrapped up, but no. The consent in this is really, really shady, and I don't like it, and I am therefore going to avoid this author in the future. I know that I'm sensitive on this point, but I would like a higher standard in romances, especially when they're supposed to be equals, and that power imbalance was just so sickening. If this had been a straight romance and Stephen had been Stephanie, it would have been a huge point with readers that the characters' consent was being trod all over, and the coercion and the aggression, and no. Just no. And because I wanted to end this on a high point, the last book that I read, and I'm actually still in the middle of going through all of the books in this series because it's just that good, was Snowspelled by Stephanie Burgis. And this book was just, oh my goodness, I have found my first new favorite author of 2020, and I'm so happy. This is the best feeling, it honestly is. I started with, I read it in audio, so I was super happy to find that the prequel novella was actually included in this audiobook. So I got to listen to Spellswept first, and this is the romance between Amy and Jonathan, and they are major characters in Snowspelled as Cassandra's support system, and I was just enraptured by this world from the very beginning. I love the twist on Regency England that puts women in positions of political power, and how it twisted the image of women versus the image of men. Like, men are described as the more emotional sex, and the words gentlemanly swoon were used. And in Snowspelled, she didn't want to kiss him in public because she would ruin his reputation and have to marry him. And it's really incredible. I just love it so much. And then you add to that the magic, which is really great, and the characters, my goodness. And the story in Snowspelled, I loved it. I loved everything, especially the resolution of the story. It just all came together so well. I highly recommend this. I'm now off to start Thornbound, which is the second book in this series. After that, I think she's got another novella out, which isn't in audio, but I may have to buy it in ebook and read it anyway. Like I said, new favorite author. So in terms of this set of books, I feel like I've been doing pretty good. Hopefully my next little compilation, I already have the theme, but I'll let you know next time, will be just as good. Until next time, happy reading.